Uncle Ron and stuff. This is episode 35 because I did 34 earlier today, so I know what it is. And today is the 15th of March, the Ides of March, and it was in fact the day that I proposed to my wife. 50, I don't even know, 53. What is it? Was 1969? That's 53 years ago? Yeah, 53 years ago. I tried to pick a date that I could remember. And who doesn't remember the Ides of March? I don't know, maybe you've never heard the Ides of March. Anyway, I was out in the yard digging and scraping dirt, and I've learned how to do that real well. I gonna praise myself and give me a pat on the back. It's taken me years, but I'm pretty good at it now. Anyway, it occurred to me the things I know, everything I know, is it simply been taught to me? Everything I know, was it taught to me? And my initial thought was, yeah, everything. Uh, and then it occurred to me that I have learned some things from reading fiction and books, mainly fiction, about human dynamics, other people's way of thinking and feeling. I have learned that. I think that was self learned, although someone presented me the situation to be examined and thought about. But otherwise, like 12 inches in a foot, that was simply definition and taught to me. Or how to add, or how to spell words. Yeah, I had to learn it, but uh, what the word was for this and that. And you're not born knowing what the word is for succotash. You know, you don't know that word. And my vocabulary has extended over time. I often make the mistake, and I'm sure people say that they'll be talking to me and they'll throw some word out, and I don't know, and I say, I'm sorry, wait, what does that word mean? Because I've never heard it. And I think most people are embarrassed they would not do that, although maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you all do it. To ask what that word means, because they simply never heard it. And my SAT scores on English, that part of it, was terrible because they had lots and lots and lots of words. And what was the definition of this word? I never even seen that word. I never heard that word. Um, anyway, taught a lot of stuff. You know, engineer took a lot of math. Learned, we all learned how to count and add and multiply and divide. And learn how sentence structures. You learn all these things. Go to college to learn even more about all kind of different stuff. History. Um, what? Psychology. You know, but it was all taught. And I started thinking to myself, well, what have I, you know, invented, if you will? What have I added to my knowledge that I did it? It wasn't, I taught myself something. I learned something myself. It was not in a book. It wasn't spoken out loud with a teacher. I didn't practice it 400 times to get it. Again, I think I have. One time I had this epiphany, and I was just bursting with the thing. And I went in and talked to my mentor, who was head of the Department of Psychology at VMI, and he listened. I spouted it out, and I was just brimming over with enthusiasm and this great thought, And he was smiling and, yeah, yeah, okay. And finally, I finished up, and he didn't really say much. And I walked out, and I started walking down the hall, and I heard this voice, and he coming from his doorway. He said, "Oh, by the way, Socrates is the first to have iterated that? No. Uh, Anything I know, I may have picked up a fragment from someplace. I can't attribute it to me directly having learned it or a thought that I have. I may be just repeating what I heard in some other different forum. What it did occur to me was there's learning, being taught, and then there's understanding what you've been taught or learned. And finally, there's methodologies. And learning is one thing, and you can self learn. As I said, I've read books and been introduced to the thought and feelings of others that no, it was not talked about in school, and I appreciate that sort of thing. But understanding, you get taught examples. Pi, I think yesterday was Pi Day, which is the circumference of a circle. And it's got this big long number, 314 goes on. I think they've calculated out to a million digits, and it keeps going. Well, it finally occurred to me, and probably it was I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again, and read it again, and finally, bingo, I understood the issue. And it's we measure things by using rulers. That's how we measure things. And so, if you stick a ruler along the edge of a circle, you can use a ruler that's 3 inches in length, and you can lay it between 2 points on the circle, and you can measure that and move the ruler and move, and you'll come up with some sort of circumference of a circle, and it'll be wrong because you used a 3-inch ruler. You can reduce a ruler to 2 inches, it's still wrong. 1 inch is still wrong. Take it down to a half an inch, it's still wrong. Take it down to a quarter inch, you're beginning to get a better approximation of the real circumference. Eighth of an inch, 16th of an inch, 64th of an inch, 1/28th of an inch. You get better and better at what the real circumference is of that circle. Because you're using a ruler, the distance between 2 points, if you will, gets incredibly small, almost infinite. And that's the reason pi has got so many digits, because we use rulers to try to measure between the distance of 2 points. And on a circle, there's lots of points, and their distance between the points is teeny weeny. How big is a point? Okay? Understanding. I understand that now. In fact, I was watching some physics stuff, and they were talking about curved space, and it did finally occur to me, maybe I've read it enough times or tried to understand it enough times, that I got an insight that I had not had having to do with uh, how mathematics of spaces worked or topology. And I got an insight into that. I'm nowhere near understanding enough to go in to be able to write anything about it or curve space. But anyway, I got that. Methodology is, I think, something that we do self-learn. You learn all this stuff, okay? But then methodologies is applying it to doing something, okay? And in the real world, like a measuring rod, you 12 inches to a foot. So you get a measuring tape and you can measure things, and it depends on what you're dealing with, like a circle. It can be rather difficult, or a curve, okay? But there is methodologies that you can come up with that work. Methodologies, I think, are something that are primarily self-taught, self-learned. You learn methodologies by doing things. And I'll state right now, my main methodology for anything is persistence. I just keep at it. And if this doesn't work, I try that. And I try another methodology. I'm applying what I think I know, but I'm trying different methodologies, with persistence being the overall methodology that I have found to be successful over time. Just keep at it and keep trying. And don't worry about your mistakes or whatever your trials are. Okay. Understanding and methodology. Understanding, I have conversations with people and I intellectually understand what they said, but I don't understand it. Understanding something deeper. Understanding is something I could then use in a methodology, perhaps, or a microscope. You know, information, facts, what I have learned to turn it into a microscope to look into other things. And methodologies is one way to do that. Uh, think I'm I think I'm probably done for this one. But anyway, the whole idea of what do you know does highlight the point that you got to be careful who you learn from. You know, you're used to a teacher and they supposedly giving you facts. That's the truth. Okay. But there are lots of people espousing stuff that they think they're teaching you something, and you got to be careful because it may not be fact. Opinions are not facts. So they say this and that, and you think it's the truth, and you you build it in, and that's where understanding comes from. You got to do some understanding on it, and it may turn out, wait a minute, that doesn't work. Thinking about it, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know. That's the part about understanding. Understand what you think you got taught. Okay, applying all the other things that you know will help you then try to understand what someone is trying to teach you or tell you or opinion you. Okay, methodologies. There's methodologies for everything, and people develop their own. They have a methodology that works. Sometimes the methodology will work for a while, and then something changes, and you'll hang on to that methodology even when it no longer works with other people or anything. You got to be aware of that and don't get stuck in the same methodology. As I said, be persistent, but change your methodologies. Try something else. Twist that. Turn it upside down. I found lots of times I'm right-handed, but can accomplish something if I use my left hand. I have to switch hands. It's the only way to get it done. I'm not as ambidextrous with my left hand, but it does work. Okay, so what you know, is it all just what you've been taught? Understanding of what you've been taught, do you truly understand what it was? Like counting and numbers. Uh, if you put units on it, it's an entirely different thing. Fractions. A lot of people have trouble with fractions. You understand what fractions mean and how they can go down and like decimal points on things and why there's decimal points on things. Understanding of what you've been taught and then methodologies that you wind up coming up with to help you accomplish whatever your goal or the project was. That's enough for today. That's episode 35, and hopefully it'll be the last one of the day.